Welcome back to another episode of On the Line. This is a bit of a special edition. I'm speaking with Dorotea Gucciardi, who runs Glia International. Her medical director is right now inside Nasser Medical Complex. This is the hospital inside Gaza. And they say that they can see Israeli army tanks about 150 to 200 meters away from the hospital. Now, Nasser Medical Complex has been issued evacuation orders. Where to go to, what happens to the patients, no one knows. This is causing a lot of confusion right now within the hospital grounds, and among the healthcare professionals who are serving patients inside. Don't miss it. Coming up is my conversation with Dorotea Gucciardi. Stay tuned. Dorotea Gucciardi, thank you so much for joining me on the line. Can you give me a sense of what you're hearing is happening over at the Nasser Medical Complex?
Hi, Samira. Thank you for having me today. So I have a few delegates that are inside the Nasser Hospital Complex at the moment, in addition to other delegates around Gaza. And my understanding is that there has been a lot of confusion and commotion this morning as evacuation orders have been issued with a lack of clarity on who exactly is supposed to be evacuating. So there's a lot of chaos happening inside of the hospital. And my staff on the ground are telling me that they can see Israeli tanks just outside of the hospital gates. They're guessing at about 150 to 200 meters away.
Can you give me an idea of, because you were in Nasser Medical Complex last spring, as the Israeli army left, you
Mhm.
entered. Can you
Mhm.
give me a sense of what this complex means to the neighborhood, and also how big it is, how many people it serves, and what its functions really are?
Sure. The hospital itself is one of the most well-equipped, well-resourced hospitals it has been in Gaza. That equipment, those resources have been dwindling since the start of this genocide, and attacks on the hospitals have happened. The complex itself is quite large. There are multiple buildings offering everything from emergency to maternal care, surgical services, dialysis offerings, and so forth. And what's available at any given moment really matters in terms of what equipment can get in, what personnel can get in, and whether or not the Israelis are actually besieging the hospital at any given moment, as we know they currently are.
Look, Dorothy, I've seen you at multiple protests, multiple press conferences. You've been asking for access for healthcare professionals to get to Gaza. What is the situation in terms of access right now? Doctors getting in, getting out. How's that happening?
It's really not great. And in order to understand why it's problematic, it's helpful to paint it into a wider context. So when the humanitarian initiative first started and we were entering in through Rafah, we were all traveling from Cairo to that border in a UN-led convoy. And so
Mm.
each EMT group, so each emergency medical team, would hire their own vehicles to transport their teams. So we had a lot more space. We were able to bring about 10 to 12 members. And then within the entire convoy, you're looking at roughly 50 to 70 healthcare workers,
Oh,
each
well.
rotation, each entry, right? And this was happening twice a week. After the Israeli government took the Rafah crossing, or the Israeli military took the Rafah crossing on May 7, the pathway to enter the pathway to enter Gaza became directly through Israel. So whereas once before we were negotiating entry with the WHO, with the Palestinian Ministry of Health, with the Egyptian government, and with the Israelis, now all of a sudden the Israelis are in complete control over who can go in and who can go out. So
And what does that meant with them being in full control?
So prior to May 7, we didn't have any denials whatsoever in terms of who could enter Gaza. So the immediate consequence to this was an uptick in the amount of healthcare workers who were being denied entry into Gaza. And the Israeli government provides absolutely no reason and no rationale why one person might be accepted and another person is not accepted. And so the rest of us, especially those of us like myself who are running these rotations, we're left reading whatever decision is made as some kind of sign or symbol to indicate why somebody may be permitted and why somebody may not be. Do they have Palestinian lineage? Have they been in the media? Have they been speaking out? Have they been to Gaza before? All of these things seem to be common denominators, but there truly is no rhyme or reason. And furthermore, there's no justification for it, because every single healthcare worker that we are putting an application in for is desperately needed inside Gaza, and they're highly qualified. They've been vetted by us, they've been vetted by the WHO, and they've been vetted by the Palestinian Ministry of Health. The one entity that is preventing their entry is Israel.
I want to get back to the Nasser Medical Complex. You said that 150 to 200 um, um, Israeli army
Meters
people
away.
pardon?
150 to 200 meters
Oh, sorry.
away
Let's take
is,
that again.
yeah.
I want to come back to the Nasser Medical Complex because you said that there's tanks. People, doctors are seeing tanks that are about 150 to 200 meters away, and the complex really is under attack.
Yeah.
Is being surrounded. What's it going to mean if this hospital goes the way of other hospitals, this complex, and shuts down? What will it mean?
Well, what it immediately means is that a lifeline for Palestinians has been cut off. And this is a space where, you know, the population of Gaza is constantly being shifted around, right? The Israeli government is forcing the population to constantly be moving, constantly to be funneling in towards the coast. And so what you have is a sizable population, a million people, over a million people located in and around the Khan Yunis area that are being funneled outwards, that have no access to healthcare facilities, period. So the primary healthcare facilities in Gaza are virtually decimated throughout the entire Gaza Strip. Field clinics, field hospitals are incredibly low resourced at this exact moment. Our own field clinic had to evacuate because it was in an evacuation zone and shrapnel had entered our space. So the situation on the ground is incredibly fraught. Nasser Hospital provides a space, provides services that are much needed to keep people alive. And so what we're really seeing mostly are trauma cases that are heading into Nasser Hospital to be treated. And much of these trauma cases are from airstrikes, they're from shelling, but also importantly, they're coming in from these Gaza Humanitarian Foundation aid deliveries, where starving people are going to search any kind of resource that they can to keep their families alive, being shot at, and then being brought to Nasser. If Nasser goes, what happens to all of those people? What happens to all of those patients that are being referred to Nasser because it's the only hospital that offers services that could help aid in their various ailments? Disaster. These people will die because of Nasser going offline, certainly.
I want to come to Canada. You and I are both in Canada. And a couple days ago, the Canadian government said it's sanctioning Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich. This is the finance minister and the minister of national security. I'm just trying to get a sense if you know if the Canadian government has put any pressure at all on Israel to allow medical personnel and aid into Gaza.
To my knowledge, no. To my knowledge, we've received feedback that there would be or could be, but to my knowledge, it hasn't happened yet. All that I've seen this government do is write statements declaring that there will be consequences if aid does not enter, but there's no indication of what those consequences would be, and there's no indication of timelines. How are we holding anybody accountable? It's a statement meant to appease those of us who have been speaking out since day one, but we are not buying it.
Your medical director is in Nasser Medical Complex. Can you give me an idea of, you spoke a little bit about what was happening this morning. Has Israel given any sort of timeline in terms of evacuation or where they want these healthcare professionals to go and what happens to the patients?
No, there's no timeline. In fact, as I said earlier, when I was talking about the rotation system, when we're often left guessing based on Israeli behavior, we're still simultaneously left guessing as to what will happen based on behavior on the ground. So this morning has been particularly fraught because, as many people know, the internet was effectively cut off today. At the same time, there were evacuation orders issued. And we often hear about that in the media, like, oh, there were evacuation orders issued for these blocks and all of these people need to leave. But what does that mean in practice? Because what it meant in practice today is that multiple people with varying levels of decision-making capacity, both within the hospital, but also within different international organizations, including the umbrella organizations like the WHO, are all receiving different calls, right? So some people receive an automated call saying everybody within these blocks must leave, and within those blocks includes Nasser Hospital. Some people received actual phone calls from an actual person from the Israeli military saying, this space is being evacuated, you must leave. And then others receive calls that say, this space is being evacuated, you must not leave, that Nasser Hospital is not included. And then even within those evacuation notices, there's questions about nationals versus internationals. Who is being evacuated? We know that there was an evacuation order issued around the hospital itself. And the ultimate conclusion that everyone drew from these bits of information is that it was an evacuation order specific to the nationals. Internationals were told that they could stay, but then that leaves each group deciding what their own threshold is for risk, and that Nasser Hospital was not evacuated or was not intended to be evacuated. But what is very important to understand is despite those words, we have to pay attention to actions. And we know from precedent that the Israeli military will attack, they will besiege, and they will kill. And so there is a lot of confusion and a lot of fear among the healthcare staff inside Nasser Hospital. And that confusion is itself a weapon by the Israeli military against patients and staff. Because you have staff members who have family outside of that hospital, and they're going to make sure that their family members are being taken care of and they are brought to a place of safety. So if those staff members have left, who's in the hospital? Who's taking care of the patients? Right? This is all by design to sow confusion on the ground. So even if they're not actually invading the hospital at this exact time, they are causing chaos inside of that hospital, and they're making it very difficult for patients to be seen, to be cared for, and to understand what resources can be reliably available at any given moment.
You know, I have to be honest with you. I've covered other conflicts. I've covered other wars, and I just want to ask you about the pressure that your doctors are under, because this isn't normal.
No.
It's not normal to bomb hospitals, to kill healthcare professionals, to abduct, torture healthcare professionals. And we have developed, by we I mean us who are watching this unfold on our phones, we developed relationships with these doctors that we don't even know. Dr. Mimi Sayed, Rosie, the plastic surgeon, for instance, from the UK. These doctors are under such immense pressure to now bear witness, not just to perform surgeries and save lives. They are now our eyes and ears on the ground. I just want to sense from you what sort of pressure your doctors are under right now.
I mean, pressure comes from multiple areas, right? Art comes from the pressure in the exact moment in dealing with a mass casualty incident, for example. But it also comes from the weight of understanding that they are limited eyewitnesses on the ground. And nobody wants this. There's no doctor that signed up to be a healthcare practitioner and also be a witness to war crimes and to speak out about them and to plead and beg the international community to do its job. Doctors are there to do their job, right? It's to uphold the healthcare sector in Gaza. It's to be there in solidarity with these Palestinian healthcare workers. It's not to sit in courtrooms, sit across from MPs, to lobby their local representatives to do anything on the side of justice. And so there's an incredible weight and responsibility that we all feel. So as you know, I'm not a healthcare worker, but I'm running this organization essentially on the ground. I feel that same responsibility. I don't know what to do with myself half the time and never feel like it's enough. It's a lot of tremendous pressure. And it's frustrating for all of us because before you go into Gaza, you're aware of the information that's coming out from Gaza. You know what other people are capable of knowing if they bother to look. And then when you go into Gaza, what you're met with is, yes, the horrors of this genocide, but you're also met with the humanity of the Palestinians. You're met with this tremendous warmth and kindness and caring and sense of community from the local people on the ground. And you cannot square that with the complete disinformation campaign that's coming out in the Western media. And so that's another form of pressure, because it isn't just about speaking out against this insane violence that we're seeing on the ground. It's also about attacking the threads that have undergirded the Zionist movement since day one. So the battle feels tremendously large. We all feel tremendously small, but I can guarantee you that every single healthcare worker that has gone into Gaza and who has been speaking out will not stop until this is over, until there's justice for Palestine.
Dorotea, thank you so much for joining me and giving us a sense of what pressure Nasser Medical Complex and the healthcare professionals and the community surrounding it are under right now. I just want to, before I let you go, for people who want to donate, for people who want to help Glia, where can they go to?
I mean, I think that anybody that wants to be donating to Gaza can take a look at a lot of really great organizations on the ground. I really support the work, for example, that Humanity Auxilium is doing. I think that MedGlobal is doing some really excellent work as well. For our part, Glia has been in Gaza since 2012. We've always considered ourselves a medical solidarity organization, and in trying to empower local healthcare staff, especially through technology, and now through on the ground hands-on assistance in clinic and in hospital, and also through a water project. If anybody wanted to learn more about Glia, they can visit www.glia.org. And we're largely volunteer-based, so if there's something that anybody wanted to perhaps help out with, by all means reach out, and we'll see if we can find a space for that.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'll make sure to link to Glia in the description of this episode. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.